If you've been injured at work in Iowa, you probably think that workers' compensation will cover your medical bills and lost wages. And you're mostly right. But here's what insurance companies are banking on you not knowing. There are 5 specific types of injuries that they're legally required to pay for, and 3 tricky exclusions that they'll use to deny your claim entirely. Miss these details, and you could lose thousands of dollars that you're legally entitled to. Hi. I'm attorney Tim Summelroth of RSH Legal. For the past 27 years, my firm and I have been helping injured Iowans work to fight for the compensation they deserve. If you or someone you know has been hurt on the job and want a free consultation with an attorney you can trust, give me a call at 319-895-1847. Let me break down the types of injuries that are covered and, just as importantly, the ones that aren't, because knowing this difference could save you thousands of dollars and months of stress. The 5 main categories of covered damages. Here's what most people don't realize. Iowa workers' compensation doesn't just cover dramatic workplace accidents. There are actually 5 different categories of injuries that qualify, and understanding each one could be the difference between getting the benefits you deserve and having your claim denied. Traumatic physical injuries, the obvious ones. Let's start with what everyone thinks of first: traumatic physical injuries. These are the sudden, dramatic accidents that happen in a split second at work. You're climbing a ladder and fall. A heavy box falls on your foot. You slip on that wet floor that the maintenance crew forgot to mark. Here's the one key detail insurance companies hope you don't understand. The injury must happen both during the course of employment and arising out of your job. It's not enough that you were just at work when it happened. The injury has to be directly connected to what you were doing for your employer. The most common traumatic injuries I see include broken bones from falls or equipment accidents, torn ligaments and sprains from lifting or twisting, burns from chemicals or hot surfaces, deep cuts from machinery or tools, crushing injuries from heavy objects, and very important, head injuries that can lead to traumatic brain injury. Here's what they don't tell you about head injuries. Even if you feel fine after hitting your head at work, symptoms like headaches or confusion or dizziness that show up later could mean a serious traumatic brain injury. Don't brush these off. They need to be reported and treated immediately. Now remember this critical deadline. You have exactly 90 days to report any traumatic injury to your employer. Miss this window and you could lose your right to benefits entirely. Repetitive motion injuries, the silent destroyers. Now here's where it gets interesting, and where insurance companies love to create confusion. You don't need a dramatic accident to qualify for workers' comp. Iowa law also covers injuries that develop slowly over time from doing the same physical tasks over and over again. These repetitive motion injuries are terrible because they sneak up on you. One day your wrist feels sore from typing. Months later, you can barely hold a cup of coffee because of carpal tunnel syndrome. The insurance company's first move, they'll try to convince you that it's not work-related. Now, the most common repetitive injuries include carpal tunnel syndrome from repetitive hand movements, rotator cuff tears from overhead lifting, knee damage from frequent squatting or climbing, back strain from repeated bending or lifting. Here's the challenge with these cases. You have to prove that the injury was caused by your work duties and not activities outside of work. Insurance companies will dig into your personal life, looking for any excuse to blame your weekend golf game or home gardening for your shoulder injury. Now, the same 90-day reporting rule applies here too, but there's a twist. The clock starts ticking from when you knew or should have known that the injury was work-related. This is where documentation becomes your best friend. The moment you suspect that your symptoms could be connected to work, report them. Occupational illnesses, the hidden killers. Here's something that most workers never think about until it's too late. Workers' compensation covers illnesses caused by exposure to harmful substances or dangerous conditions at your workplace. These work-related diseases can be the most harmful because they often go unnoticed for years. If you work around chemicals, dust, fumes, or germs, you could be developing a covered illness right now without even knowing it. Common examples include breathing problems like asthma from toxic dust or mold exposure, chronic bronchitis from chemical fumes, skin disorders from repeated chemical contact, hearing loss from being around loud machinery for too long, and diseases contracted in healthcare settings. The insurance company's strategy with these claims is always the same. They'll argue that your illness came from somewhere else. They'll point to your smoking history, or your age, or your family health history, anything to avoid paying benefits. Here's what you need to understand. The illness must be directly connected to your work environment, not just a general health problem that happened to show up while you were employed. Getting lung issues from working around silica dust for 20 years, that's covered. Catching a cold at the office, that's not. Pre-existing conditions. Your past does not disqualify you. Now, this might be the most misunderstood area of workers' compensation law, and it's where I see the insurance companies pull their dirtiest tricks. Having a pre-existing condition does not automatically stop you from being able to get benefits if your work makes it worse. Let me give you a real-world example. You've had some back pain off and on for years, but you've been managing it fine. Then, at work, you lift a heavy box and suddenly you're in agony and you find out you need surgery. The insurance company will immediately claim that this is just your old back problem flaring up, not a new work injury. But here's what the law actually says. If your job duties or a specific work incident caused a clear worsening of your condition that would not otherwise have happened, you're entitled to benefits. The key word is aggravation. It was going to happen anyway. The insurance company's playbook is predictable. They'll demand all your old medical records. They'll hire doctors to say that your problems are just age-related. They'll argue that any treatment you need was going to happen anyway. This is why documentation is absolutely critical. You need to clearly show how your condition changed after the work incident, not just that you had problems before. Mental health injuries, the hardest fight. Iowa workers' compensation does cover mental health conditions caused by work, but these are some of the most challenging claims to win. Now, there are two types of claims: mental physical injuries and mental injuries. Mental physical claims occur when a physical work injury leads to depression or anxiety or other mental health problems. If you suffer a serious back injury and develop depression because of the chronic pain and inability to work, that depression can be covered. Mental claims, however, involve purely mental injuries from traumatic work events, like witnessing a violent workplace accident. These require clear evidence that unusual work conditions went far beyond typical job stress. The reality is, insurance companies fight these claims harder than almost any other because they can be expensive and are harder to prove. Now let's turn to what's not covered, where claims go to die. Let's talk about the injuries that will get your claims denied faster than you can say workers' compensation, because understanding these exclusions could save you from wasting months pursuing a hopeless case. You've got the arising out of employment trap. Remember, your injury must happen both in the course of employment and arise out of your job. Just being at work isn't enough. If you trip over your own shoelaces in the break room with no work-related hazard involved, you're probably out of luck. If you get injured while using the office treadmill for personal exercise, that may not be covered either. Self-inflicted injuries, the automatic disqualifier. This one's straightforward but important. Any injury that you intentionally cause to yourself or others is going to be automatically excluded. Punch a wall in frustration and break your hand, no coverage. The key difference is between intentional acts and accidents. Employee errors are usually still covered because Iowa is a no-fault state for workers' compensation claims. The intoxication defense. Here's where insurance companies get really aggressive. If you test positive for drugs or alcohol after a workplace injury, Iowa law presumes that intoxication was a substantial factor in causing your injury. You have to prove otherwise. Now, this doesn't mean that every positive drug test kills your claim, but you'll be fighting an uphill battle. If the substance was legally prescribed and used as directed, you might still have a case. Now, understanding these categories isn't just technical knowledge. It's the foundation of whether you'll get the medical care and benefits you need or whether you'll be left fighting the insurance company alone. But knowing what is covered is only half the battle. The real challenge comes in proving your case and navigating a system that is designed to minimize what you receive. Even good claims get denied just because someone didn't have the right paperwork or because the insurance company found a loophole. That's why it's worth talking to an experienced Iowa workers' comp attorney who knows how to work the system. If you or a loved one has been injured here in Iowa and you would like to set up a free consultation with an experienced attorney who will fight for what you deserve, please give us a call today at 319-895-1847. Our conversation will be private, it costs you nothing, and can potentially get you the biggest settlement possible for your case. Now, if you found this video helpful, subscribe to this channel and make sure you watch this next video.